tapi di Dua Perempuan Gila.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Dua Perempuan Gila. And today it's not just us, it's a special edition. We are so glad and happy to report that we are at the Rainforest Discovery Center Sepilok Sandakan for the 5th Borneo Rhythms of Rimba 2024 right here. Woo!
Kami diterbangkan jauh, bukan
Yes.
diperjalankan jauh dari Keke.
Yes, from
pergi,
KK to Sandakan,
pergi Sandakan
to the East Coast, and our first guest for our Borneo ROR 24 edition, we're glad to report, is a doctor. Dr. Katrina Fernandez is a conservation biologist and a director of Wild Otters Research Private Limited, an organization based in Goa, India, dedicated to wildlife conservation and habitat restoration, with a focus on small carnivores. Listen on, because ada kaitan sama keke ini. Ada kaitan sama apa yang baru-baru jadi di keke.
Oh, yang di Perdana Pak yang kena kakai oleh
Memerang. Memerang. Otter. In
Otter.
English, it's otter. In Malay, it's called memerang. So she's an expert in otters and passionate about, I like this one, participatory conservation. Maksud dia itu kerja-kerja konservasi yang melibatkan penglibatan community.
Pemeliharaan gitu.
Yes,
Okay.
where local communities are actively involved in preserving biodiversity. So Dr. Fernandez here, she's amazing. She has worked across Africa, Asia, and Australia, and is a full member of the IUCN SSC Otter Specialist Group. So yeah, here we are.
Hello.
Dr. Katrina.
Yeah.
Hello.
Happy to be here.
Happy to be here. So we were telling her about what we are, two crazy women, and then she says, yeah, today is three crazy women.
Crazy women.
Because who gets to say, like how many percent of people in our society gets to say, what do you do for a living? I'm an expert for otters.
Pakar
Kalau
memerang.
Pakar memerang. Ambil kau, pakar memerang.
Pakar memerang.
So that's
yeah.
kind of crazy work that you've been doing. So tell us a little bit about your work.
So I've been studying.
How did you get into it, maybe, right?
Yeah. How I got into it is actually a crazy story. So I actually read a book called Ring of Bright Water, which is about an otter that was found in a pet shop in London. And this guy was walking down the pavement and he saw this creature at the window, and he went into the pet shop and he said, hey, what's this? And they said, this is an otter. And it's originally from the Middle East somewhere, and it's for sale. Do you want it? So he said, yeah. And he takes this otter, and basically his entire life changes based on this otter. He had to move out of London, and then he wrote a book, and the movie is actually based on the book. So I read both the book and saw the movie, and I was doing my doctorate at the time on a completely different subject, invertebrates. And it was in the Western Ghats of India, which is a biodiversity hotspot. I was very curious to know, are these creatures here in our backyard? And I grew up on a farm in the middle of the jungle, so my first step was, to go out and camera trap wherever I could find streams. And I got otters, and it's been over a decade now, and I submitted my thesis, I got my doctorate, and then it's just been otter after that. So yeah.
Why otter?
Why?
Why? Sebab dia bahaya, dangerous.
So why otters? So otters are very cool. So most people don't know that otters are actually apex predators. Okay, they're the top of any ecosystem that they might be in.
But they look so cute.
I know, they look cute, but they're apex predators. They are quite ferocious if they need to be. And also, they are underdogs, right? Conservation looks mostly at large charismatic animals. That's where the funding goes. That's where the money is. And that's where the interest is. So, I like to go for the underdog. That's
The
where my
underdog.
passion is.
It sounds like the same. Yeah, sounds like the same. Underdogs. championing underdogs,
Yes.
right? Or misunderstood creatures.
Misunderstood. You also don't see otters. They're not easy to see. They're
Yeah.
elusive. So, studying a tiger versus studying an elephant, these are big things. You go out and you're looking for them, you might find them. It's hard to find an otter. It's not easy. So, a lot of things that are difficult and small and elusive, the research on those subjects is much less compared to the larger charismatic animals. So,
And so, yeah, let's not waste any time. Let's relate that to the recent incident that we were talking about in KK, Perdana Park, Tanjung Aru,
Pak, betul.
where a group of four
Berapa
lady
orang? 4 orang
joggers,
kah?
yeah, 4 lady joggers were attacked, and I think one of them suffered quite some bad injuries. So, as you mentioned, you don't really see otters, but they're there, and they came by the numbers, like
Betul. Ramai,
tiba-tiba. Dan
berkumpulan begeng.
kenapa tiba-tiba? Like, why
Yeah.
suddenly? Like, where were they all this while? And what do you think pressured them into? And they're lady joggers. I can imagine if they're kids, then I can imagine the kids were probably taunting them or something. But yeah, what do you think?
So it's rather interesting. So Asia has 4 species of otters, and there's 3 actually confirmed in Borneo, and there's potentially the 4th one as well. So there's the small-clawed otter, which is the smallest, tiniest otter species in the world. There's the Eurasian otter, which you may or may not be having here. There's the smooth-coated otter, and there's the hairy-nosed otter. The Eurasian and hairy-nosed are both solitary animals, so they are individuals usually, and they're very quiet and elusive and you don't really see them. Whereas the small-clawed otter and the smooth-coated otter, they are a social species, so they're in large gangs, large family
Yeah.
groups. Now, this incident, I believe, it happened with smooth-coated otters, and smooth-coated otters of all the otter species seems to be the most versatile and able to adapt to changing environments. And increasingly in Asia, with the increase in population, with the increase in habitat fragmentation and all these landscape changes, these otters seem to be the ones that are most able to adapt to urban, semi-urban living. And increasingly are being seen, they are being pushed and they're being seen more and more in those sorts of landscapes. We've seen it in Singapore, we're seeing it in parts of India, we're seeing it now, of course, in parts of Malaysia as well. So this is typically what the smooth-coated otter is doing. It's going into these landscapes and being able to survive in there. And now there's a number of things also driving that, right? One of them is, I believe, where this incident occurred is a man-made lake, or it might have been natural, which is now landscaped to become man-made. There might be carp in there or other fish that have been put in, large amounts of it. For the otter, that's like a buffet. That's like, hey, there's free food. I don't have to spend much energy to get it.
Okay.
Whereas if I have to go to the ocean to forage, that's a lot more energy, less fish. Here it's like it's there. In a closed space, there's lots of it.
Yeah.
I like it. Right? I mean, humans would do the same thing. Yeah, you find a cheap buffet and you're going to go and say, hey, I'm going to go there. Why should I go and bother cooking at home if I can do it, get really cheap and really quick here? So it's the same concept. So there's that. The second thing is people. I'm not very sure what the prelude was to this incident taking place, but otters they have a large variable vocalization, and they do tell you when to back off. It starts with hissing and then progresses to different types of growls and things like that. So especially if they have babies, then they are going to be territorial if there are young ones around. And I believe in this situation there were young ones around. I did have a conversation with some people yesterday, and they could be pregnant or they could actually have babies. And the babies are very vulnerable. They sometimes are still blind, they are unable to swim. They're not natural born swimmers, they actually have to learn how to swim. So babies are very vulnerable, and that's anybody. I mean, even human beings get upset when somebody is being aggressive towards their children, right? It's the same concept. So if the jogger had earphones or was listening to music and didn't really interpret the signs or what was going on, they've just surprised each other, and the outcome, unfortunately, in this case was negative. But it doesn't have to be. I mean, I would encourage people who are jogging in that area, and if otters are present, to perhaps just not use music, to look around, be aware, make sure that there is no otter in 15 meter radius of where they are. And if there is, just back off. don't go for that selfie shot. Don't go for that photograph. Just back off. Just watch from far away.
Okay, I'm sorry dokter. I have to ask her to translate. Okay, Mi, kau tanya dia. Apa kerajaan patut buat? Sekarang kan
Yeah,
pada
yeah, I
napak
was thinking
ditutup.
about-
So
yeah.
saya rasa macam
I was thinking about the same thing. They closed down the whole place. What, as an otter expert, right? What would you have suggested the government do? I was afraid that the wildlife would just come and, or someone would come and shoot them, or
I don't have the data
and closing the
points.
space. That's even worse.
yeah.
Just closing of it's a huge recreational
Recreation.
space.
Which will create negative vibes with humans. Is
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
you're saying. Well, I don't have all the data points. I don't know what exactly happened and how it happened, and so I cannot give you like a full explanation as how to mitigate this issue or the conflict. I don't believe closing it off is the answer.
Yeah.
I believe understanding what happened,
Yeah.
why it happened, and dealing with that issue both from the side of the animal as well as the side of the human. There's also potential. If it was in a much more vegetated area, it might have been a den site. They might have actually. I don't know. I've never been to this location. I don't know. So I believe somebody needs to go check it out. Needs to understand what the habitat is, why those otters are there in the first place, how long they've been there for. Is this a new occurrence? If so, why? And if it's an old occurrence, then are they permanently in that location? Is that their home? And then maybe just cut off that section of it rather than the whole thing. Or fence off or do something that, because the moment you make people also scared that otters are attacking, then that's not good for the otter, nor is it good for the human. The human doesn't now have this space, but they also have this idea that otters are really bad, which they're not. They're not bad at all. Right?
Otters are not
they're
bad.
they're not bad. They're not
Memerang
aggressive.
bukan jahat.
Dia tidak jahat seperti yang disangka dan diuar-uarkan.
Yeah, so why do you think it's important for us to care about the otters instead of just, just shoot them, just like what happened with the crocodile situation. There was also a crocodile situation here. And, the comments, the general feeling that I gauged from the community was to end animals' lives. So,
I think the most important message, and the one that we have all forgotten as a human species, is that we are animals ourselves.
yes.
We are human beings.
Yes.
We are a species, just like every other species.
We have animal instincts.
We have animal instincts. We behave like animals.
We have
animals.
animal
We-
natural intelligence.
Exactly. The only thing that makes us different is that we have language, that we have intelligence, we have collective intelligence, we have the ability to do a lot of things that most other animals don't. But at the end of the day, we are social animals. We like to be together. We reproduce. We eat. We depend on nature for everything, for sustenance.
We react when we're
right?
triggered.
Our food is coming from nature.
We
Our
react,
water is
yeah.
coming from nature. If it's uncomfortable in nature, then we cannot survive.
Yes.
Right? So we are a part of the system. And that system includes every other animal species that exists. And they're there for a reason. We are there for a reason. And even if you want to look at it from a religious, spiritual, scientific, whichever perspective you look at it, right? There is a justification. If God made us, God made everything.
Yeah.
Is it okay to then destroy what God made just for our own selves? Right? Same thing spiritually. And again, science. Science is the same thing.
Natural
Yeah?
science.
Why do we have apex predators? Apex predators maintain the food chain.
The food
Okay?
chain. The balance in the,
The balance
ecosystem.
in life.
Yeah.
I give you another example with a different otter species. The sea otters, which the cute ones that hold hands that you see on social media that sleep on their backs in the ocean, right? In the 1700s and 1800s, they were hunted left, right, and center in the Americas for the fur trade, to make coats, to make hats, and they took the largest animals, and they were quite large animals. They decimated that population. They fragmented it, and it basically had a range from California all the way up into Alaska, all the way across right up until Japan. Technically, we actually have 5 species of otters in India, but the sea otter has not been seen in Japan for over a decade now, right? And we fragmented this population, and we took the best, largest animals. So genetically, we now have smaller animals because all the large animals with the good genes we killed off. Now, they're an apex predator, okay, and they're also what we call a keystone species. They eat urchins. Sea urchins are little round animals with thorns that we find at the ocean bed, right? And sea urchins eat kelp. Okay. Now, when the otter population was decimated, nobody was eating the sea urchins. So the sea urchin population became really, really large. And then they ate all the kelp. And kelp sequesters carbon.
Oh, faham.
Right?
Okay, yeah.
So now we don't have the kelp and it's not collecting the carbon. So there's extra carbon in the atmosphere. So what is that?
More depressed humans.
More depressed. Well, everything, right?
More depressed living beings.
So it's contribute to climate change.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you have taken away carbon sequestering. You have taken away a whole ecosystem. That whole thing, we call that a cascading effect. Basically, it breaks everything down. And so every apex predator has a role. Tigers do it. Tigers control the herbivores so that the herbivores don't eat too much grass, so that the grass can help all the small
Oxygen.
mammals live there. Right? The mongooses and the porcupines, they all depend on the grass. If there's no grass, these animals don't have a home. So everything goes out of balance. If there's no porcupines, then we don't get a healthy forest because porcupines dig. They dig and they turn the soil over and they help the nutrient flow. So suddenly now there's no home for these guys. So every animal that is on this planet has a role to play. However big, however small, whatever it is, it has a role. And the moment we take that out, we are creating imbalance. Now, how do otters help human beings? Fish. We like to eat fish. Fish live in healthy ecosystems. Otters are indicative of a healthy ecosystem. If there's no otters in any given ecosystem that they're meant to be in, that means there's something wrong. There's either no fish, they're unhealthy fish, or the entire river is just of no use anymore.
So the fact that we still have otters around here in Sabah means that we still have a healthy water ecosystem. Yeah, there are still fish that otters love. That means safe for human to also consume.
Yes.
Yeah. So balance,
Balance.
right? Balance. Everybody and everything has a role to play. Even cockroaches.
Even cockroaches. Like,
I bet. Yeah, okay. So, what can people do? Like, we were talking about this off air and how we were disappointed with how things has not really changed post pandemic, coming out of it, and you've done this for so long. How do we keep the spirit going?
so I have a very simple analogy, right?
Like even for daily people like us
for
who
daily
don't,
people.
who
For
don't.
daily people, I have a very simple thing. When we buy something expensive, a mobile phone, let's say we buy an iPhone, it's a lot of money. We look after it well. Why? Because we value it. There's been a monetary transaction, and you don't want to lose that money, so you value it, so you look after it. We don't do that to nature anymore. We do not value it. Okay? Kids don't look at nature and say, wow, I need to save that. They don't know why they need to save that. There's no point
There's no
telling
connection,
them,
yeah.
there's no connection. There's no point telling a child that's important, you need to save that. There's no connection. Why?
Why should they
they care? Right? So how do we create that connection? Now, everybody would say, oh, you just educate people. And I found over the decade that I've been working that just coming into a space and telling people about otters doesn't do anything for the otters. And why should it? I mean, I walked away from you today. Maybe you know something more about otters that you never knew previously. Great, you have the knowledge. What are you going to do about it? Nothing. You don't have the ability to do anything. Right? So what needs to be done, in my opinion, is to build this value, is to become more interactive with the environment itself, is to build skills. People don't, when they go for a walk, nobody is looking around to find animals. They're just walking. And then they would have done the walk, and they said, now I've done the walk, right? Taken a few pictures. The value is only for themselves in that moment in time and space. But we need to go one step beyond that. Build the skills, go back to observing, understanding what is around you, why it's important, and if it's not there, what is going to happen next. So I think only by getting people involved in the actual process is there ever going to be a change. But just giving out information, that's just consuming. That's not doing. Doing is what needs to be done.
Agree. Yeah.
Do. Don't just think. Do. Be.
Yeah,
Right?
those things.
Yeah. So, do you have any more questions for Dr. Katrina?
Okay.
Because I think we have a good, solid
Okay.
content. Sudah.
I just read.
Before we go into the pandemic topic, and then we won't stop for another 1 hour.
Okay. Can you share some success story from your international conservation work until now? Your success story.
Give us some hope.
So my success stories are very tiny. They're not very big. Okay?
Success,
Still
anyways.
success.
But they're success. and this is actually disheartening in a way, because you cannot have large scale success in changing people's minds. So one of the things I've learned is the way you try to change people's minds is different. Okay, I can give you the Indian context. In India we have different, I mean everywhere we have different classes, different types of society, different types, levels of education. It's all in a hierarchy. How you communicate with each of these different hierarchies is very different. If you're taking a tourist out on a walk and the information you're giving them is vastly different, has to be vastly different. I'm not saying is, but it has to be vastly different to the information that you're giving to a child in a school, who you're going to try and get molded into this person who's interested and has value for nature. They're vastly different. You can't go there with the same idea in your head that I'm going to tell you about otters, I'm going to tell you about wetlands, and you're going to be great and you're going to change the world. It's not going to happen that way. So what we are doing, one of the success, what I would consider a success story, but a very tiny one, is go to very, very young kids. And when I say young, is young enough to grasp certain concepts. So I would say, 10 to 15-year-olds, and get them involved in the process through art, through storytelling, through any activity that they choose, photography, video, music, whatever it might be. There are various mediums that you can use to get people involved with nature. The center theme is nature around you, but the way to get to that is not just by messaging, is by doing, and doing through whatever it is that makes people interested. It can even be sport, it can even be games, it can be anything, but using these different multi-dimensional methods to get that message across physically, and it has to be an interactive experience. So the success has been with that. It's been, we get artists in, we get kids to find 3 birds, we get them to sit in an outdoor space, we tell them to identify 3 birds, tell us what those 3 birds are, we find the sounds of those birds, we play those sounds, then we put a picture of it on a screen, and then the artist will actually teach them how to draw a bird from scratch, with using 3 little round circles and a triangle, and then we actually monetize that art. So for village kids, we put it all onto wrapping paper if it's Christmas, before Christmas, and then we put that in all the local shops, so that the parents now can see all their kids whatever they have drawn on this wrapping paper. You pay 10 rupees, 5 rupees goes into the making of it, the rest 5 goes back into the project, and now you've monetized it. And then now art is a thing. Art is monetized. Art is cool.
Yeah.
Art is easy to do because somebody's taught you to do it, and you know something about one of the birds you've drawn about, right?
So this is the participatory conservation
That
work
is the
here.
participatory, yes.
Get kids, get the community,
Get the community.
get people to participate.
Yes.
Because if you just if you're just out here blasting out the messages and
It's
people are
not
just
going to
walking
work.
by, it's not gonna work. You gotta get people to literally hold their hand and
Yeah.
say, hey, look what we can do with
Yeah.
this.
And make it fun. It has to be fun.
Yeah.
And it has to be quick. You can't do it for, days on end. It has to be 45 minutes. This is what you're doing. Chip, chop, chop. Let's go.
They'll remember it. My kids remember Pangolins for the longest time after Pangolin expert Dr. Elisa Panjang gave a talk in one of these environmental awareness festivals. They know Pangolin till now.
Yeah.
So they know about it.
Yeah.
So participatory conservation for the win.
Yes. Absolutely.
Right. So thank you so much, Dr. Katrina.
My pleasure.
If we're given the time, if we're given the space, we would have lengthened this interview more, but here we are, right? So we're
It
just
is what
glad-
it is.
Yeah, it is what it is. We're just glad we got you for a bit to
My
talk
pleasure.
about this. Thank you so much for waiting for us. And I hope that we can get more up close and personal in the next chance that we get to talk. If you're ever back in Sabah, do remember the two crazy women
Yeah. Will do.
that were once three crazy women with you in Sandakan.
If you're ever in India also, please.
Yeah, two crazy women in India.
Yeah.
Who knows, right?
Anything's possible.
Yeah, anything's possible.
Yeah.
So thank you so much, Katrina.
My pleasure.
Yeah. Do I have to repeat that?
Okay, last Emi.
Punya heartfelt.
Emi last ni na, Emi last.
So yeah, looking ahead for this work of conservation. Sesudah thank you dia kau ini.
Tadi tak dengar.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
What future projects or initiatives? Because I see that our next guest is here already, Jana. Okay, of what future projects or initiatives are you excited about, and how can people support your work,
Yeah.
Dr. Katrina Fernandez?
Last. Yeah.
So there's quite a few projects in the pipeline. One of them is actually in East Africa. That's the one we're really struggling with in terms of funding and stuff like that. Again, we don't know anything about the otters in Africa. They've hardly been studied. They're very difficult to study, more so than in Asia. Most of the places that we have to look for them are inaccessible. It's all canoes. You can't walk anywhere. It's dangerous. Hippos and crocs and whatnot, things that can kill you. So yeah, I mean, it's exciting to see different landscapes, different habitats, and to discover absolutely we know nothing about these otters. So that's what's up in the pipeline, trying to get that together. And we also work on bats. We don't know much about bats. Again, another species of another animal group that is extremely, people
Endangered,
don't endangered, and
misunderstood.
also people misunderstood. That's the word
Yeah.
I'm looking for. I mean, it's downright
Bats.
people don't want to have anything to do with bats. So, and again, I mean, a single bat eats 1,200 to 1,400 insects an hour, right? What is that going to do for agriculture once they disappear? Where is our food coming from if there are no bats to eat the insects who destroy the crops? So everything is linked and everything is important. And I just keep doing what I'm doing, and hopefully something will make some change somewhere.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. So thank you so much, Dr. Katrina, for sharing your wisdom, your stories.
My pleasure.
It's inspirational. We need more crazy people doing crazy work. It is crazy work what you're doing. I can't imagine studying otters for so many years and being so effective at that as well. Right? So creating more information. I mean, who would have known an otter expert would come in handy in 2024
Yeah.
in
Well,
Sabah,
in
right?
Sabah.
So yeah, it is what it is.
It is what it
And
is. Alright.
hope to see you again. Jumpa lagi.
Okay.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Terima
Bye-bye.
kasih.
Terima kasih.
Terima kasih.
How do you say thank you in your language, in your native language?
English. Thank you.
English. Thank you. That's your first language.
That's my first language.
So you speak any Indian?
I speak 4 Indian languages.
4 Indian languages. Wow, interesting. Nandri?
Nandri is Tamil.
Tamil.
Yeah.
Hindi?
Dhanyawad.
Danewan. Nandri. Danewan.
Bye.
Terima kasih, Kotohodan.